Hello, everyone. My name is Ignacia, and as Martin said, I've been a service designer for a couple of years now here at GDS. And I've worked on the WK design system team for about a year. And after that, I've moved on to projects relating service assessment improvements, service communities, and helping departments collaborate on end-to-end services. And I'm currently working on gov.uk, trying to improve journeys to enable users to find Brexit information. So it's been quite a journey. But today, what I really want to talk about and share with you is designing the service behind the GovUK design system. So there's so much to say about design systems in general. You might have heard some of this before, and it has so many angles. There's accessibility, there's content design, there's UI design, templating language for the more technical people. But I'll be focusing today on what I know the most, which is designing the service around the products that the GovUK design system provides. I'll share some of the challenges of doing this in large organizations such as government, and my personal journey as a service designer working on this team. So yeah, I'll give a little bit of an intro of the GovUK design system, what it is, then I'll talk about how we've built the service, and at the end, I'm going to finish with some key learnings and takeaways. Yeah, just to say again, I work in government digital service and I'm a service designer here. So this is GovUK, as most of you know, one of the main things that GDS is responsible for, and it's a single website for UK government services and information. So I'm going to talk about the design system that we've built for GovUK and how it's helping our government deliver accessible, usable public services. I'm going to focus specifically on how a spirit of openness and collaboration is essential for the success of any design system. So we know that while this GovUK might look like a single website, it's actually designed and delivered by hundreds of service teams from across 25 different departments around all the country, and all working independently and at the same time. So our challenge here is, how do we help those teams effectively deliver usable, accessible services that look and feel like gov.uk? So here are some of the problems that we are trying to tackle while working in a large organization such as government. We have teams across governments that are delivering services, are working often following strict deadlines and focusing on their own service. So there's no central space to share work in progress and not that much incentive to do so. This means that sometimes they fall back into siloed ways of working. This also means that we're often trying to solve the same problems over and over again, which creates duplication of effort, and this also means time and money. And finally, it also results in inconsistency, which ultimately affects our end users' experience with government digital services, so citizens. For this, we've built the gov.uk design system. We launched it back in June 2018. And it took us about a year to build, but it's grounded from work going all the way back to 2014. So back then we had a handful of design resources. We had a style guide called GovUK Elements. We had a wiki for discussing design patterns using Dropbox paper. And we had a front-end library code. So considering that they were all supported by a bunch of people in their spare time, that was amazing work, but it had not been really designed to scale, and there was no real team behind it. Until we've finally had a full multidisciplinary team, which was formed like about 3 years ago. So we have designers, interaction design, service design, front-end developers, user research, content designer, performance analyst, product manager, and delivery manager, so quite a big team. And today I'm representing the work behind this team, so big shout out to all of them, and some of them who are not actually in this photo, but are in the current team as well. So this is the WK design system. We've built it as a collection of shared best practice that established an open standard for the design and development of government services. This helps us bring things consistently and share solutions in the open. It's one place to find styles, components, and patterns to help designers and developers to design and build government services. So these are some of the things that you can find in the design system. We've got headers, typographic styles, color palettes, form elements, tabs, and so on. It also contains design patterns for common user tasks. So here's a pattern that helps users work out if they should and can use your service. And we've also got patterns for how to ask users for personal information like their name, gender, or sex. For each component and pattern, we explain when to use it, when not to use it, and how it works. We also describe any research and testing that has been done under each component and pattern. And we also say which research is still needs to be done. So we ask the community across government to help us collect evidence to prove and iterate this design pattern or component. So all the examples are coded using our own front-end library called WK Frontend. The code is available as plain HTML or in the non-Jux templating language. If you use the WK frontend in your service, you can just copy the code straight from the design system. And we also provide a tool called the WK prototype kit, which lets designers quickly make HTML prototypes for user research and testing. So this image shows the products that we offer as a design system team. Our main front door is the WK design system website. We also provide this prototyping tool for designers and developers to create high fidelity prototypes using code, and this is the prototype kit. We also have a design system community backlog, which is hosted in GitHub, where people can suggest or progress contributions to the design system, share research, and be part of the discussion with the community. And everything is powered and built by using WK Frontend. So having the system and its products is a good start, but it's not enough. We know that. We need to actively work with the community to get them to adopt it. This is not easy because there's so many barriers to engagement and adoption, like differences in tech stacks, ways of prototyping, and you're likely to need to help teams embed it into existing products and services, not just once, but continuously. We also know from research that people won't use it if they can't influence it. To be a success, it needs to incorporate the latest research, design, and development from the whole community to make it more representative and relevant for all teams across government. And for this reason, we need them to help us build the service. So that's why I was brought into the team as a service designer. My role was to help the team think about these things and develop the service that wraps all of these products together. So how will people become aware of it? How are people going to contribute to it? How are people going to receive support when using it? So in government, we say service. We mean a thing to help users, citizens, or civil servants to achieve a goal. We can't just build and provide products to our users. We need to support them in achieving their goal, which could be learning to drive, starting a business, or import animals. And by users, we don't just mean citizens, but we also mean civil servants, designers and developers or product managers in government using the tools that we provide. We need to help them build better government services, and they are the main users of the design system. So here are some of the problems I've set to solve and try to address as a service designer on the team. We need to provide something that meets the needs of hundreds of users and service teams, that accommodates different organizational requirements and limitations, and that is versatile enough to be reused. We have no way to make people use the design system. We have to convince them, and this is by addressing these challenges, things that they struggle with. We also want to allow users to contribute to everything. To everything, I mean not only components, code, or content, but all the way to being involved in decision-making. It's an open source project in all the sense, from the architecture to the service around it to the decisions we make. And finally, how do we make sure the design system continues to be relevant over time? This needs to evolve and adapt. The design system is a living thing. So the design system is not just a product, as I said, or a set of tools. To be successful, it needs to function as a service that puts people at its heart. A design system is only as good as a community it represents. And we've put in a lot of hard work to design a service offer involving the wider community and government. So I've organized this bit of the presentation as if we were looking at the design system from a user perspective. And what are the things that we've had to have in mind while designing the service? So from becoming aware of the system and its products, to designing to use it or not, setting it up, using it in their day-to-day jobs, contributing to the system by sharing research, to contributing new patterns and components, and finally, keeping it up to date of changes and improvements. I'll start with the first point of interaction with the design system. How would people become aware of the design system? So one thing is to have built a shiny new design system that now lives on the internet. Another thing is getting people to become aware of it and generate interest. Here are some of the challenges that we face trying to address these things on this bit of the user journey. As I've mentioned before, the scale of and the size of government is huge. Every department works differently. Every team has their own preferred tools for, when it comes to designing and prototyping services. And there are many out there, so there's a lot of competition as well. We quickly realized that in order to raise awareness in this environment, we need to reach out to the people that would help us at a local level. So we need to know who the direct users are and stakeholders. What are their motivations and needs? And we need to engage them. So these are some of the things that we set up and engage with in order to start reaching out to people across government, working on components or patterns, and getting others outside GDS involved in shaping the system. So as I said before, we started by identifying direct and indirect stakeholders. We had to understand who is out there, who is already doing this work in departments, who do we need to start working with. We can't expect it to just build a thing and have people finding it and wanting to use it if we don't involve them in that process. So I ran a stakeholder mapping session with all the members of our team to think beyond a single product and to see the wider context in which the service sits in. This helped us identify key stakeholders we needed to engage with and collaborate to start raising awareness of the design system. It also helped us bring a shared understanding within the group and raise some important questions for research. Some of the people we've engaged with were heads of communities in other departments, other design systems in government, across different disciplines, and other bits of GDS as well. So after identifying stakeholders, we decided it would be a good idea to bring them all together. We are somehow working in a similar space, and they are involved or will affect what we decide to build as a service. So we quickly realized we needed to get people together in a room to start talking. So we worked closely with heads of design, lead designers, and developers across government. I started by running workshops where we could understand the different needs in departments, while also empowering them by being involved in the process of shaping our service offer. Thanks to these sessions, and by engaging with our potential users and stakeholders, they have helped us in their departments to raise awareness within their communities, including the design system on their onboarding processes and allowing for internal buy-in and preference for using it. So because we've involved people in our processes, they've become advocates for the design system. So once your user is aware of the design system, they still need to decide whether to use it or not. Does it meet their needs? Is it easy to use? So the question here is, how do we support users to be able to use the products and embed it in their context? So you need to support teams who adopt the system. Unless your system was built at exactly the same time as all of your organization, you're likely to need to help teams embed it within existing products and services, and not just once, but many times. So let's look at some of the barriers that we face while trying to address these. This is the environment across government in which designers and developers may work in. There's different technologies. There's a lot of legacy systems where things are very difficult and challenging to change. There are competing design resources. There are other pattern libraries in government as well. And there's different ways of prototyping. We have designers that prototype with code, but we have a lot of designers that prototype using Sketch or other tools. So I'll show you how we've tried to address some of these issues and how can we support and enable users to use our products. So to understand our users, their challenges and needs, we started mapping out the different journeys for different types of users. This helped us to highlight pain points and show opportunities for improvement. I created an as-is journey map using past user research and separating front stage, so everything that is user-facing, and backstage, all the processes and people that need to be involved for the service to happen in the first place. With this, and working closely together with the team, we were able to identify various gaps and questions that we haven't thought of or have answered before. It helped us visualize the entire process in which the user has to go through and what we need to put in place to make it easier for the user. It could also include a view of the entire system with all the key stakeholders and all the technologies that support the journey. We also looked at it from a perspective of our team. What do we need to deliver at each point of the journey for the users to have a good experience? So after doing this and focusing specifically on the usage and adoption stage of the user's journey, we started by creating a support model. We've put together a process in place to make sure that we're addressing people's questions and challenges. Today, we provide support through 3 different channels. We have Slack, we have Zendesk, and we have all the different GitHub repos. So we have set up support rotas for our team, where everyone in the team rotates and takes turn to answer questions through all the channels. We've also developed and provided training for the prototype kit. We have set up triage sessions on a weekly basis for the team to review all the support requests and try to understand where are users struggling and how we could improve our support throughout time. We've also created setup and how-to guides to help our users get started with a prototype kit when working in a prototyping environment or a production environment. And after supporting users to set up, we needed to provide them with a safe environment to ask questions, to get support, and challenge things. We need to enable the space for this. So how do we make sure that the user comes back and becomes engaged and involved after using it once? And some of the challenges with this were that there was no visibility on what other service teams were working on across government, which, as I said before, it sometimes led to duplication of effort, working in silos and inconsistency. We also needed to be able to work together as a community to avoid wasting the effort, time, and money. And building a community doesn't happen by itself. You need to enable a space where people can contribute to the discussion, which is inclusive for everyone. So here are some of the things we've done to try to address those challenges. We've tried to bring people together to raise visibility on opportunities to collaborate and share work and enable a space for discussions. And we've done this by doing the following things. For the past 3 years, we've hosted a weekly call with anyone interested in creating components or patterns for prototyping and building government services. We use this space to have conversations with designers and developers to share work in progress, have design crits, talk about challenges that we face, and identify potential opportunities to collaborate. With this, we've built and maintained relationship with key stakeholder in departments like HMRC, Home Office, DWP, HMCTS, and MOJ. This is a small group of people, and not everyone joins every Friday, but it has been a key space for building this cross-government community over time and to provide support for one another. We're very active on Slack channels across the organization. There are more than 1,200 people in our Slack channel, which is huge for government. We've created a specific channel for the design system to provide support for our users, but we also contribute to the general design and development discussions. We make sure that we communicate any changes or updates to the system. We provide design advice for users who are prototyping, and also we connect people who are working on similar things. Because we're at the center of government, our team has that visibility of what other people in government are working on, and we can help spot opportunities for people to join up and collaborate. Another way in which we enable participation is through cross-government workshops. These are opportunities to meet face-to-face with people across government, build connections, and enable a place to craft things together. An example of this is a scenario and journey mapping session that we had with key stakeholders and potential users of the design system. We identify ways in which we could collaborate, the barriers in that collaboration, and potential pain points or new user needs to inform the future work of the team during private beta. By involving the expertise within the wider government and organization, they were able to help us as a team shape the different aspects of the service. But although we were reaching out to people, the problem around duplication of work was still there. People were still building things on their own. There was not a visibility of what was being worked on. So we decided to look outside and see what was being worked on, where there were overlaps and duplications, where could we spot opportunities to work together. And to help with this, we've created an open community backlog using GitHub, which was co-created with designers and developers from at least 10 different departments. This became a starting point for discussions, and a place to share work in progress, user research, and give feedbacks on components and patterns. We now have a place where we can point to our users who are looking for something which is not currently in the design system, but might be discussed or worked by others in government. This community backlog also became the place where we could start to design and trail a contribution process. It's now a place where teams and individuals can propose new styles, components, and patterns, contribute to existing ones, and see what else is being worked on. The backlog lives in GitHub, as most of our colleagues in government can access this platform. However, we know that there are some challenges with using GitHub for some people, so the team is already working on ways of addressing that. And you can access the community backlog from the design system website as well. People use our GitHub repo to share research and examples, ask questions and propose improvements. And this way is the community that can help to improve things over time in the design system. And finally, we've created a section on the design system website for the community, where we invite people to become part of this cross-government community, contribute to the system, and be part of the discussions. So after becoming aware of the service, using and adopting it, participating as a community, we need to think about how do we enable contribution. We need this to allow the system to grow, evolve, and sustain itself over time, not depending on a solo team, but on an entire cross-government community. So how do we empower and enable people from across government to do this? How do we make the system fair, representative, and of quality? Contribution is one of the huge benefits of the design system. It let us harness the collective experience, skill, and time of the community of our users. They're the ones who really know whether a component or pattern is working or not. They're the ones who can test new ideas and make improvements. They're far closer to any users of government services that we as a central team will ever be. And this is why it's vital that they are able to contribute back so the design system can keep growing and getting better over time. And also, we don't also have the capacity within a solo team to build all the new components and patterns at the rate that government needs without having external contributions. So this has not been an easy task, and we've also faced some challenges to get where we are. Some of the challenges is that we've seen that from research, the reality is that most people are lacking at least one of these things to be able to contribute. People need motivation, need to feel confident, they need permission, and they need the time to do it. We've also realized that the more quality assurance framework that you put in place, the harder and more daunting it becomes to contribute. Another thing is trying to make it fair and representative. Reviewing design can be challenging and sometimes blurry. Decision-making can be based on opinions, and it's not only about the design, but there's content, there's code, and there's research as well. And finally, we need to be able to work in the open, but this can also be very challenging. There's many collaborative tools like Google Docs and Dropbox Paper, but not every department can use all of these tools, so it becomes very challenging. So I'm going to share with you some of the things we've done to address those challenges. We started by creating a clear, straightforward process for contributing new things to the system so that users would feel more confident in doing this. We've started by creating guidelines on how to contribute. We've documented the processes for users and published it in the design system. And so in this way, we can set clear steps and expectations on how to do it. We've also created a support process for our team to help contributors prepare a good proposal for it to be reviewed. And this involves having a contribution support rota. This means having a contribution support lead from our team, which will be the main point of contact between the contributor and our central team. This person will be in charge of having kickoff sessions to help the contributors scope the pattern or component. They will coordinate design crits, and they will give feedback to help prepare a good proposal for it to be assured by the working group. And we've also created an open assurance process. With this, we've co-created with people from across government a set of criteria to help us assure the quality of the things contributed to the design system. This aims to set expectations to our users and facilitate the decision-making. making sure that these decisions are fair, representative, and evidence-based. We've also set up an independent cross-government working group, which has the representatives of different departments and different disciplines that discuss and decide what the contribution meets the WK design system standards. And proposals are reviewed on a monthly basis against this published criteria. This independent group of designers and developers meet to discuss and assure the contribution. And having this external group, which makes decisions based on this criteria, ensures that the system is fair and represented the needs of the different departments as well. We're also making sure that decision-making is transparent. So we do this by publishing results and recommendations from those review sessions using GitHub, so others can see the thinking behind the decisions that were made. And one thing that we were really keen on is to make sure that we were fully committed to shift decision-making authority a bit away from GDS. So we didn't want to just do it for the show. We had to establish the relationship between our team and the working group. So after running a workshop with a working group, together we defined the different roles. The working group will value getting contributions into the design system over keeping them out. They make constructive recommendations to help contributors improve their work. And they decide what will go into the design system. Having this group of representatives ensures that it's community-led and not just GDS-led. And the role of our team is mainly to coordinate, manage, and facilitate discussions, decision-making, and publications of new things. We work with contributors to support their proposals. We record the decisions in GitHub. We moderate the review sessions. And we ultimately have responsibility to ensure that the contents in the design system adhere to the relevant WK standards. So in summary, this is what our contribution and assurance model looks like today. With a working group, the contribution criteria, the community backlog, the review sessions, and the support we provide as a team. So since we've launched, we've published 16 new or improved components and patterns. 13 of these have been contributions from outside the team. They include our tabs, accordions, character count components, and error message templates for common questions. We've had around 70 or more people contributing to the patterns and components in our backlog on GitHub, sharing things that have been designed within service teams and learnings from user research. So I've talked about the journey of our users and the service we provide behind it. How do you make it sustainable over time? Maintaining the service and its product is something that sits alongside all of these steps. Building a community, contribution, and support. Our role as a central team in government is important, not only to provide resources to build government services, but also to make sure that what we provide stays relevant, up to date, and adds value. So how do we make sure we keep delivering a good service throughout time? And some of the things that we've done is this. We've documented processes, and we're really focused on enabling others to deliver that service. So for example, working very closely with our content designer, Amy, we've enabled the team to run things by documenting our support processes. We've documented our support model, so now that anyone in the team can provide support to our users, even new joiners of our team. This makes us more efficient and resilient. It contains step-by-step guides, templates, and additional tools to make the process more standardized within the team. We've also made sure that we're continuously improving the service and its products. Some of the most recent work of the team has been trying to create more simple ways to lower level contribution, specifically for non-developers. So we work very closely with content designer, product managers, and user researchers as well. And we need to make sure that we're including them in the contribution process as well. So the team started creating first-timer issues. Sometimes we spot a simple thing that needs fixing in the design system, like typos, improving content. We could fix it ourselves, but instead we create an issue in GitHub and label it first-timers only. The issue contains the instructions on how to use GitHub to fix it. And in this way, we can lower the barrier for entry for contribution, so they can do it themselves. We know that GitHub can be intimidating. We want to make sure that everyone can contribute and not just developers. So a couple of months ago, our team ran a couple of training sessions to teach content designers how to use GitHub to propose changes to our guidance. We created 18 special first-timer issues and used them in these sessions. By the end of it, we had 18 new contributions and 18 small improvements to the site. And we've also made our roadmap of future work available in GitHub. So we're allowing our users to know what the team will be working on in the future. And finally, as a key aspect of the design system, we need to make sure that we're sustaining the community as well. And so we've continued engaging and working with a wider design and developer community across government. And this time, sometimes is in formats of workshops. We've ran and organized many of these sessions where we've had 35 to 40 designers and developers from at least 8 different departments come together with the aim of understanding how we can work better closely together. And the workshop is a chance for teams to show their work and discuss the challenges of creating different design resources in government. Together, we have co-created a set of principles that we could follow as a community and discuss different ways of organizing design systems. So, I'm getting to the end of my presentation, so don't worry. I'd like to finish by summarizing some of the key learnings from my perspective as a service designer and why I think it's important to build a service as well as a product. And the first thing I would say is make sure your team is on board with the service vision. You need to have your team on board for this way of working. It sometimes means that things might move slower and at the expense of short-term efficiency. Engaging the community takes time, effort, and getting people to work together and agree on things is always hard. It also means informing the team's product decisions, and sometimes that's not always aligned. Convincing the team, but also users and stakeholders, that it is a worthwhile thing to do is hard, but is something worth investing into making it sustainable over time. So this is a quote from a colleague, senior content designer here at the design system team, Amy Hugh, who says, prioritizing collaboration even sometimes at the expense of short-time efficiency makes the design system far more sustainable in the long run. Another thing that I would say is that support is usually overlooked, but I've learned that it's a key aspect of delivering a good service over time, even though it takes a lot of time and effort. This is what allows the system, once it's live, to continue to adapt to changes and evolve over time. If we're not supporting our users will stop using the design system and our services and will move on to other things, leaving the design system as something that is not of relevance anymore, not useful anymore. The other thing I would say is involve the community that you're working for in the process of shaping the design system or any service for that matter and what's in it. This will drive adoption and create advocates for your service and help you develop it over time. This will enable the system to grow and sustain itself over time, not depending on a solo team, but on an entire community to keep it relevant for users. And another thing I've learned is the importance of documenting everything for you and for your future selves. So document design processes for others to easily pick up, deliver, and iterate over time. Often, relying on individuals and their knowledge makes things disappear over time. You lose continuity, and this ultimately affects the experience of users of that service, affecting trust and eventually the adoption of the system. So I would recommend designing and documenting not only for yourself, but for your future selves and future teams. And finally, continuous improvement of the service as well as the product. As time passes, you need to make sure that you're learning from how your users are using the products in their context and get input to inform the product improvements. But also, you need to make sure that the service that supports the user is continuously improving, that the contribution process that you have in place is iterated and evolves in time, and that you keep engaging and growing the community behind it while reducing the complexity in the user's journey. The design system is a powerful thing because it's a thing that the community can own and develop. As digital practitioners, we're learning new things all the time. We develop new services and improve existing ones. We're always adding new components or patterns, or there's always things that we can keep developing, changes to make or findings to share. We need to keep supporting the community to help us grow and sustain the design system over time. And yeah, I think that's it for me. I made it on time. Thank you very much, everyone.